Welcome to MMA Made, the best MMA show around the world. My name's Mighty. Thank you so much for joining me. So in this episode, we have some past, present, and future stuff going on. Let's get into the past weekend. We had the twofer Sutherland. We had Bellator MMA on Friday night. We had UFC on Saturday afternoon, morning, depending on where you were. For me, it started off around 10 a.m. or so. But let's start with Bellator MMA. We actually had Brandon Housey for the open title weight class. Well, actually, it was his belt that was stripped months back. But basically, it was Housey versus Rafael Cavallo. And interesting matchup. Brandon was pretty much dominating the entire fight until it ended, obviously. But I mean, he was just, doing his typical grind out, his dominating wrestling with great submissions, and he had a great head and arm choke on Rafael, and he went and tapped. And Housey, from what I hear, is a beast, is just so strong, especially for his weight class. And so for him to overcome that choke and then get out and then eventually land a devastating liver kick to Brandon, wow, hats off. Rafael gets the open belt, which was, like I said, the strip title from Brandon earlier in the year when he couldn't make weight. So he becomes the middleweight champion for Bellator. Another honorable mention on this card is MVP, also known as Michael Venom Page. This guy's no joke. We haven't seen him against a top-tier opponent yet, but he's going in, and he's, at least the opponents that he's fighting, he's making them look silly. He does a lot of that a la Anderson Silva head movement and kind of funky stuff, and he switches stances a lot from orthodox to southpaw, so it confuses people. I mean, I want to see him against a top-level opponent. I mean, as far as MMA math goes and Scott Coker's concerned, he might be ready for a title shot. He's undefeated. I want to say he's 9-0, 8-0, something of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see what comes his way next. I won't be mad if he gets a title shot. I personally would like to see him fight a upper echelon fighter first that isn't a world champion, just to see where he kind of fits in the mix, and then throw him into a title shot. But if they gave him a title shot, I wouldn't be mad. So we'll see what happens. He's an exciting fighter. Yeah, so we'll have to see how that goes down. Who knows? Maybe UFC Brass is keeping an eye on him. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know where his contract is with Bellator, but it'll be interesting to see what his next fight is. All right, let's get into the next night. UFC Dublin, the card that kind of fell apart, or not kind of, it did. It lost its original main event. It lost its original co-main event, and then technically it lost its secondary co-main event because that became the main event. So it lost two co-main events, if you want to get technical. But Louis Smolka came in and fought against Paddy Houlihan, talking about silencing a crowd. Smolka gets the win, and by stoppage, by the way, and man, boom, pin drop. That place was silent. You know, those Irish folk, they get behind their fighters and they can get that place loud, tear the roof off of it, and then for their fighter to lose. And that wasn't the only Irish fighter that lost. Couple of them lost that night. Couple of the bigger names. Aisling Daly pulled off a win, so she was one of the few Irish fighters that did win that night. So it was interesting to see. It sucks, if your hometown hero loses. You always want to get behind your hometown heroes to see them lose at home. You don't want to see them lose at all. Obviously, you want to get behind your fighter, but to see them lose it at home, it sucks that much more. So, but hats off to Louis Smolka, and we'll see what's up with him next. See who they're gonna put against him. So that was this past weekend. Now, I'll just get into it right now. we have no fights this weekend for the major promotions. I know there's always fights going on. We've talked about this. There's always fights going on. Whether it's in your neighbor's backyard, the bar down the street, the local bowling alley, there's always fights going down somewhere. But as far as like the major promotions, UFC, Bellator, World Series of Fighting, Invicta, Titan, Legacy, RFA, there's nothing this weekend. So, like I said, always something going on, so don't get offended. I'm just saying major promotions, that's televised, that's easily accessible, that isn't a local promotion that you have to go to live because they don't stream it online or they don't broadcast or what have you. We're going to be bored this weekend. Well, it is Halloween, so probably strategy by the promotions. They figure, hey, kids are going to be out trick-or-treating. The folks got to take out the kids, and the kids that are old enough that don't need the folks, they're out causing mischief. So, there you go. And, with that being said, happy Halloween, all you MMA fans. So, anyways, we'll talk about news and rumors. The first thing is, in regards to UFC Dublin, Dustin Poirier and Joseph Duffy, that were originally the main event, have been rescheduled going to UFC 195. That is the Carlos Condit, Robbie Lawler card for the welterweight title. That is a great addition to that card. I really want to see Poirier against Duffy. So to see that, it got rescheduled and fairly quick. Almost positive that's right around New Year's Eve, right after, it's in January sometime. So that's fairly close. Got about, I don't know what, less than 2 months to check it out, 2.5 months. And I guess that would be 2.5 months, actually. I'm not very good with that quick math with calendar, unless I have the calendar in front of me, you know what I mean? So, in any case, that's good to see. Nice to see that's been rescheduled. So, boom, we will get to see that fight, hopefully, right? The other thing we got going on that is a big deal right now. Joanne Calderwood out against Paige Vanzant. Rose Namajunas steps in. JoJo is a phenomenal fighter, don't get me wrong, but Rose, I think she's a whole nother level. So this is going to be a big challenge for Paige. You know, they're properly groomed Barbie doll. This is going to be a tough fight for you. This is actually a big fight for both these fighters, because even though Rose is actually ranked higher, I believe right now she's ranked 3rd, and Paige is ranked 6th, I think Rose actually has, obviously more to lose fighting a lesser ranked opponent. So if Paige loses, she loses to a legitimate top 3. But if Rose loses, she loses to a lower ranked opponent. But from what they've been saying and what other fighters have been saying, the UFC's strawweight division isn't necessarily ranked properly because it's so new, and they kind of, I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but that's what I heard. So who knows if maybe Paige should be number 2 and she really isn't. I don't know. She's been looking good. If she goes in and beats Rose with the dominating win, like a stoppage, a submission, a knockout, what have you, not a decision, obviously. She's obviously going to get bumped up in the rankings, and then that puts her one step closer to fighting the champion. So I know they want her there. They want her there. I mean, she's personable. She's a good-looking girl. She can fight. I mean, why wouldn't you want that as your face of your company, That person, GSP was great. Who else? Jon Jones was, and then, he had some issues. Anderson Silva was, until he had some issues. So really, I think the last great face of the UFC brand was probably GSP. Ronda Rousey does a great job. She gets a little hood sometimes. But for the most part, I think she's a good face of the UFC brand. But I think GSP, outside of the alien interaction, he's probably one of the most well-rounded faces of the product you could ask for. So Paige VanZant could be that next person. Sage Northcutt could potentially be that person. Conor McGregor, probably not. I mean, not that he's bad for the sport, because he's probably one of the best hype man ever. Arguably against Chael Sonnen, I don't know. I would say McGregor might be a little bit better. It's hard to say. But as far as the face of the product, there's a lot of love and hate against that guy. So I think with VanZant, it's hard to hate her. So in any ways, getting back to that that'll be an interesting matchup and see what happens. I'm super excited to see it. That'll be in December, I think the 9th. December 9th or December 10th. That is the main event. So, and then more importantly, now I won't say more importantly, but another big thing that's happened over this past week, Jon Jones back on the UFC roster. That's big. I heard rumors that he might come back and go to heavyweight. I mean, they've always talked about him moving up to heavyweight at some point because of his size. He can easily pack on the muscle. And he probably walks around at 220, 225 anyway before he goes to camp and cuts. So to maintain that and maybe put a little bit more muscle mass on, he could easily be a heavyweight, especially with his height. He wouldn't be probably like a 265er unless he, hooked up with Overaim and start doing some of that old school Overaim training. But he could easily put on some weight and be a 235 or 240 El Natural, still probably keep a decent amount of his speed, his unorthodox style with his crazy angles and lengthiness that he uses both arms and legs. I can't put my leg up, but he has that leg distance that Rogan talks all about, that they never calculate for reach, which leg reach is as important, if not more important than arm reach, especially if you are a Taekwondo style or a Muay Thai fighter, kickboxer, someone that utilizes legs a lot. That reach is important. Jones uses it. He uses a lot of awkward kicks and whatnot. Any case, it'll be interesting to see when he comes back and where he fits into the groove, whether he's going to go into a light heavyweight division where he was and dominated so much, or he's going into the heavyweight division. Who knows? Maybe he wants to start a new chapter in his life. He's like, you know what? I did what I did. I didn't lose my belt. It was stripped from me. I kept it for X amount of time, X amount of title defenses. Let's go on to the next thing. I would be intrigued. I mean, there's definitely some cool matchups. I would like to see him in the heavyweight division, so I guess time will tell. But in any case, he's back on that UFC roster. There's plenty of matchups for him in the light heavyweight division, don't get me wrong. Obviously, DC has the belt, so doing a rematch there to show who the real champion is. Rematching Gustafsson because that was arguably one of his toughest opponents he ever had. And potentially fighting Rumble. He never got a chance to fight Rumble yet. So any one of those three matchups, I would be super intrigued to see. But if he decides to move on to the heavyweight division, there's plenty of matchups up there I'd like to see as well. So, in any case, this is a short but sweet episode, as I like to call it. So I do want to wish everyone a safe and happy Halloween. And have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.